sounds like clickbait, let's be honest, but hear me out because the data is staggering. I'm going to make the case that the New York Jets have taken this defense from really damn good to elite, and all it cost them was a 7th-round pick. Now, last year, New York Jets defense was really special and elite in 2 major categories. Number 1, defensive line, the highest ratio of pressure rate to blitz rate in the NFL. Translation, they got home with 4 as good as anybody in the NFL. You know that. You watch the games. You also know that the cornerback trio of Sauce Gardner, Michael Carter, DJ Reed, by any metric, even the ones that factor in opponent, situation, rain, whatever you want, they were as good as any unit in the NFL. The linebackers, CJ Mosley, 2nd-team All-Pro. Quincy Williams, hit or miss. There's some depth lacking. A Quan Alexander signing would go a long way, but I would argue the linebacking core headed by CJ Mosley is good enough. And then that leaves safety. And it is amazing how well this defense performed with how putrid these 2 safeties were last year, LaMarcus Joyner and Jordan Whitehead. And Jordan Whitehead, I think, will have a bounce back year a little bit. We'll get to that in a second. But the Jets safety tandem last year were bottom 3 in the NFL in yards allowed per target, in missed tackle percentage, and they were actually dead last in explosive plays allowed per snap. So that would be either a completion allowed, a missed tackle given up, or a penalty that resulted in a play that gained over 15 yards. And all of the other teams that were in the bottom 3 of these categories, Bears, Falcons, they had injuries to their defensive back rooms, and the Jets started Joyner and Whitehead pretty much every game. So objectively, the Jets had the worst starting tandem of safeties in the NFL last year, analytically. And they still had a top 5 defense. Now, help is on the way. In comes Chuck Clark for a 7th-round pick for the Baltimore Ravens. He's in. LaMarcus Joyner is out. And I don't think Chuck Clark is great. I think he's good. And going from atrocious to good is a monumental upgrade. Chuck Clark, all the metrics that we mentioned with Joyner, with yards allowed per reception, missed tackle percentage, cut it in half. Cut it in half for Chuck Clark. Chuck Clark is twice as efficient as LaMarcus Joyner last year. The gap between LaMarcus Joyner and Chuck Clark is just as significant as the gap between Chuck Clark and Kevin Byard. This is a monumental upgrade. Now, again, somebody who was at all the OTA practices, media member, told me that Chuck Clark was taking more of the free safety reps and Jordan Whitehead was taking more of the strong safety reps. I think you might see some big nickel with Tony Adams in there as free safety and then Jordan Whitehead popping down in the box as a linebacker role. But basically, Chuck Clark is one of your starters and LaMarcus Joyner is out. So he's replacing those snaps. That is huge. That's an upgrade right there. Now, Jordan Whitehead, there's a little bit of a ripple effect here because I think now that you have Chuck Clark, who can be a little bit more trusted as a free safety, he's not great, but he's a lot better than Joyner. And you have the potential for Tony Adams to come in and play free safety, and you're in a big nickel look. I think this is going to really increase the amount of snaps that Jordan Whitehead takes in the box, and that's where he's at his best. In 2022, Jordan Whitehead's amount of coverage snaps that he took on a per-game basis was a 22% increase from 2021. And even more significantly, the amount of pass rush snaps that Jordan Whitehead had, so the amount of times he blitzed, was reduced by 1/4 from his last year in Tampa to his first year in New York. Now, some of that is scheme-based. That won't change a ton. But translation, Jordan Whitehead belongs in the box a lot more, sniffing around the line of scrimmage. To go a little further, I know we're getting nerdy here, but this is really, really significant stuff here. I was really surprised going through these numbers. So, missed tackle percentage. Jordan Whitehead missed a lot of tackles last year, but it's not that simple. When Jordan Whitehead was lined up as a deep safety outside of the box, he missed 13% of his tackles. When he lined up inside the box, he missed 6% of his tackles, half as much. Half as much. Why? Well, because Jordan Whitehead struggles to take angles from depth and tackle outside of his frame. He's a box safety. He's better there. Additionally, Jordan Whitehead last year had the least amount of turnover-worthy balls thrown his way that were converted to interceptions in the NFL on a percentage basis. Translation, he has stone hands, all right? So now, if Tony Adams or Chuck Clark are taking more of those free safety reps, and they just have average, league average hands, that's going to result in a lot more turnovers. So the addition of Chuck Clark improving the worst safety room in the NFL and getting it to anything approaching average is going to have a ripple effect through this defense that I think is going to take it from top 5 to a ceiling of the best defense in the NFL. Now, we didn't include the variable of Quan Alexander not being a Jet anymore, so let's just fix that and re-sign him, and we're good to go. And we'll talk ball soon.